Alright, everyone, I thought I'd do something different. So, as you know, I wrote One Consciousness when I was connected to Source. Before that, way back in the past, I was writing another book, and that book was called The Story of Protection or Enslavement. And in this book, I was doing it through David Crowley's eyes, the person that was making Grey State, because I had great respect for what he was trying to do. And so the character in this book is David Crowley, but it is meant as a honour of David Crowley after his murder-suicide that happened. And I hope you understand exactly what this book says and teaches in it, as well as the story that I created to try to make this book explain a future that we could have and might be having, but hopefully we're not. So, this book was dedicated to the loss of a man with a great project that had been lost due to him and his family's untimely death. All characters are of a fiction, some are real-life events that have been portrayed in such a manner to allow the reader to associate themselves more to the world that the young fictional character Dave comes across the real-life issues we could all make happen and unfold if we don't watch the direction and the shaping of our future. This book is a work of science fiction. Any group or character's similarity is merely a coincidence. This work plays with the idea of a tyrannical, controllable government seeking to enslave its people through the means of war and psychological warfare. It's a Orwellian nightmare mixed with 1984. It's what could happen overnight. I only got down to a few chapters, so the chapters in it are A Nation in Direct Threat, the website of the Mystery Man, Rogue Informer, Oh Phil, Where Are You? So the introduction starts. It's calm, no one comes here. Outer cities are patrolled. Checkpoints fill what used to be our streaming highways. At night, the sound of the Federation Shadowhawks can be heard whispering over our dilapidated flats and our once beautiful homes. Curfew roll calls echo in the distance as a sector reports to the authority. My hand has the mark. The authoritarians insisted when the war had reached its peak. My life was just like yours. Nice home, nice family. We struggled, but we got by. Then the war on freedom came. The governments had tricked the world's population for so long, but when we woke up, all hell broke loose. And this is where my storyline starts. Chapter 1. A nation in dire threat. The industrial age is always the same. Our inventions are always the same. Everything remains in the same cycle. The universe is a cycle. A womb is a cycle. And evolution of the species is a cycle. But I ask you, what if all an aggressive agent had manipulated the cycle so evolution could not evolve natural, but was locked into a figure-8 cycle? Could evolution not evolve natural, but was Could this be done? As I sat there staring at some university conference talk on hypothetical theories, the channel blinked and then flashed. This is an emergency broadcast. Test. Please remain 30 seconds. The screen then flashed, and the noise was ear-piercing as a high screech like nails scraping down the blackboard. Then I stopped. The program resumed. I yawned and looked at the time. 3 a.m. Damn, I have to get up soon and prepare. See, I was a low-budget film student. My ideal place I wanted in society was to be a film producer. Don't get me wrong, I didn't want to make millions on the selling propaganda. I wanted to make a message, something that would change the world, something that would benefit all of us, but I was lost. I walked to my room and laid down, facing my window. Time for sleep, I repeated over and over in my overactive head. Thoughts keep running to me. What was the film I could make, and how could I make a program so different to the millions that have been made? My mind drifted, and I remember my eyes closing in the heaviness of the deep slumber. I would have never thought the idea had the next day could have been such a dangerous endeavour for me and my family. Oh, sorry. My name. I never said my name. I'm David. I have a loving daughter and a loving wife. They are away at their grandparents'. My daughter Abby is a bright student, and my wife Sandra, well, she's everything a man asks for, supporting, loving, and has a natural way of making people like her they would do anything for her, but she would never ask. So back to the story. I woke up at around 7:15, gazed up at the digital numbers, then raised slowly from my bed. I walked into the closet and prepared the attire I would wear for the day. Walking out of the bathroom, I turned the TV on. ZOX, which is Fox backwards, XOF. Ox News reports. The Ox News reports have been plastered all over the screen. Alert in big letters repeating across the screen. I watched with amazement as a large airliner smashed into our financial district landmark. Was this a dream? How can this happen? How did this happen? Just hold up. I'm just moving down to the next part. Alright, so how did this happen? In the age of the 20th century, this was insane. I just lost it again. Fuck. In the age of the 20th century, this was insane. As I watched in disbelief, I watched another airliner collide into the commercial district. What the hell is going on? I rushed and sat, pushing up the volume higher and listening to the report. We have reason to believe that our great soil has been attacked by an outside aggressor. The news repeated and repeated the same statement over and over. My eyes stared at the burning buildings and the planes that had collided, people struggling on high-rise floors, half the building structure fractured. All of a sudden, a large rumble and smoke engulfed the buildings as each floor's windows exploded, as the financial district's landmark collapsed to rubble. Oh my God, those poor people. Just as the sickness turned in my stomach, I watched the same happen to the other building in the commercial district. This can't be real. My brain kept repeating to itself. I rang a few people I had seen what I had to see. I rang a few people after I had seen what I had to confirm that I wasn't going crazy, because I really thought I was. A few minutes after, the selected president at the time appeared on the channel. Nation, we have been attacked. Nations of other interests do not like that we are free. They do not like that we have democracy. The influences pushed by these separatists should not go ignored. We must tighten the security of our homeland, and if we are to remain free. It's in our best interest to keep our people safe with security and peace. As I heard our president say these words, an ominous feeling of displacement rushed through my mind. I decided I would take a walk. My phone buzzed as I closed the front door. The melody for the national anthem played. Hello? Hey, babe. And hey, babe, me and Abby want to stay up here for a few days. Mum and Dad are kind of shook after the news. I don't think I should leave them, plus Abby is having a blast. No prob, I'm just heading out soon. The news kind of threw me for a loop. Feels so unrealistic. It was so unreal and so surreal. LOL. You and your conspiracy nonsense. Anyway, love you, babe, but not everything is always a mystery to be solved. LOL. Okay, sweetie, gotta go. Bye. Mwah. I continued to walk down the driveway and take a turn to the Ambado Street, which is Obama backwards. I knew a local delicatessen owner I was chummy with and thought I'd go and have a yarn with him. Walking around the corner, a man dressed in a veteran outfit from Vietnam stood speaking. Don't trust them. Don't believe a thing that they say. It's all lies. Lies, I tell you. His ranting went on for quite a while. I listened to every word that he had spoke. He had said that it was the shadows that were controlling our reality. He told me of ancient beings that could shapeshift. A lot sounded like New Age nonsense. But one thing really caught my attention. He had asked everyone, why do we use the same idea of the wheel if the cavemen invented it? Why? Why don't we return to the moon since we have already been there already? Why do we play these endless cycle games? Cycle? I thought about the theory I had watched on television the night just before the endless 8 cycle. I asked him, what cycle are you talking? The 8? The 8, he said. It's all that holds us back. It's what keeps us in this technological prison. We are not free. We are not controlled. Our cycle is controlled. They would never have thought it could be done, but it truly has. This world is damned. How are we damned? What are you talking about? I was confused but intrigued by his statements. I asked him to accompany me for a morning coffee to discuss this endless ape cycle. He looked back at me and said, "You can see? You're a believer. Don't let them do it, brother. Don't let them destroy all what has been built for their greed and power hunger." I didn't really understand, but I replied, "I won't, brother." Putting my hands on his shoulder, we both made our way a little up the street as a black window, grey metallic Econoline van pulled up and three men jumped out, brandishing a semi-automatic Colt 45, waving their hands rapidly. "Get in the van now." My heart palpitated faster and faster. A rush come over me. Before I knew it, my legs were to its lengths in front of me. I bolted to the right and to the left. The trail of gunfire ricocheting nearby objects could be heard echoing as I crossed the gun's crosshairs. Darting around, trying to escape, I jumped a concrete wall and slid down in between someone's house slits. I rolled around, pushing myself towards the open visual to see what had happened to the veteran. I could see the two men standing behind him. The other was searching for me. He stopped and turned to the others. "No sign of the intruder. He must have got away, boss. But the target is secure and ready for evac." He relayed to his superiors, "No worries, sweep ground 13. He was not a threat. The man that we want you have. Well done, mission accomplished. See to it we won't have to round up Mr. Parrott again." The men pushed the vet into the van's back, covering his head with a black knapsack, tightening it around his throat. They jumped into the car, one in the front and two in the back. "End of the line for you, buddy," the driver said, slightly as he turned the ignition on and the van started up and slowly began to move. I watched as the van turned down the street and vanished from my sight. I picked myself up and brushed the dirt from my clothes, finding a leaf caught in between my crease. My hands shaking from what had just happened. I thought about calling Sandra, but I didn't really want to worry her, so I decided I would not tell anyone but go straight to the police station and report the incident I was almost a part of as well as the witness to. Since Sandra and Abby had the car, I would have to catch the bus, then walk through the commercial district to get there. I walked to the 313 bus stop and sat down. I had 10 minutes to wait before the bus's arrival, so I decided to play around with my smartphone. I played a small strategy game called Pawns. The objective was to use the given resources to start to bribe and win other competitors in higher influence in the game. In order to control the full city, graphics were okay, but the gameplay is what got me. Anyways, enough about my game. I played and waited. Then I watched the black matte painted, looked like some armored cars come flying past me in a convoy. Must have been 8 or 9 in a row. Each vehicle had 5 men dressed in black, balaclavas, black from head to toe, wearing what looked to be military-grade armor. Just as they passed, my bus pulled in and opened its doors. I heard the hydraulics creak as it opened. I walked onto the bus. Oh, sorry. Let me just fix that up. The balaclava was black from head to toe, wearing what looked to be military-grade armor. Just as they passed by my bus, pulled in and opened the doors, the hydraulics creaked as it opened, and I walked onto the bus driver. Sat there on the dash. I could see the RIP CFD. I knew this meant rest in peace for all those in the financial district. I felt sorry for those people once again. I paid using my plastic all-day bus card and went and sat at the back. My hands still slightly shaking from my past experience. I remembered some meditation techniques that Sandra had showed me, so I tried to relax and slow myself down and gain ground again. After a few minutes of controlled breathing, I felt more calm. My hands slowly stopped shaking. I listened as the bus made its stops along the way. We turned into the main street into the district. You could see the disaster that has been reported on the news. Military stood around holding AR assault rifles. The wreckage looked like nothing. The amount of the debris surrounding The area was remarkable, a small amount of from such a small large structure and a plane wreckage to fit. This is really strange. I waited. My bus come to the stop. I wasn't far from where I could see the disaster from before. I decided I would investigate. Stepping out of the bus, sirens screamed all around me. Ambulances, fire engines trailing past. My hearing as they passed and went towards the wreckage. Slowly making a pace, I walked towards the area. As I got close, I scanned around with my eyes, searching for the plane. All that remained was a dust of small fragments of the infrastructure the size of a melon. This was insane. I walked even closer. I could see police line crossing right around the area. I heard a fire team officer ask a police officer to my side as I passed by, what did they find at Ground Nought? Ground Nought? Never heard of it called that before. Turned my head back around and an arm grabbed me, thrusting me and forcing me back. Move back, citizen, now. I tried moving to the side, but before I could remember seeing the fist come up directly to my face. Disorientating and seeing stars staggering, a group of militarized police pushed forwards. As I looked around, a small group of protesters chanting about "Stop the Satanists," holding signs depicting some of the country's state and governmental influences. I think the sign said I was the Walking Dead for a period of seconds. I think that's what the sign said. I was the Walking Dead for a period of seconds. A gunshot went off, and I remember seeing the brains of a nearby protester hit the cold pavement in front of me. Everything came to a halt. The militarized group stopped, and the protesters looked with sadness across their faces. All of a sudden, one yells, "For the fallen," and runs off about a yard and a half away. A nearby parked van explodes. Holy hell, this day was... holy hell, this day was... I turned my... holy hell, this day was... What the fuck? Holy hell, this day was... crazy, I guess. Holy hell, this day was crazy. I turned my head back around and an arm grabbed me, thrusting and forcing me back. Move back now, citizen. I tried, but moving to the side, I remember... Hey, that's just the same fucking shit. Sorry, people. That's just a fuck up in my writing when I copied and pasted shit, I guess. Van exploded. Holy hell. Oh, here we go. Holy hell, this day was becoming more insane by the hour. I managed to duck through the crowd, somehow avoiding the arms, the batons, thankfully live fire. This was unusual. I knew about the past conspiracy theories I'd watched on Tubeloob, but I'd never believed a lot of them. I was beginning to question just how our society is. My mind filled, pondering about what has happened to our society. I decided I would make a film that would show everything I could show that was wrong with society and how everything would turn out if we didn't change our path of our direction that we were pushing for. I didn't know much about laws. I didn't know much about government working. I wanted to know why and who would let a law enforcement officer murder someone in cold blood, and I was determined to find out. If this man they called Mr. Parrott had been taken, I must be able to find out who he was and where he's been locked up. I looked back and the police had all the protesters lined up in an execution line. One by one, the officer lifted his firearm and placed a nozzle at the back of the head of each of the women and men. My eyes bled inside. This isn't reality. The gun echoes, cracking through the air as each protester's body collapses to the floor in a pool of blood. Skull fragments removed. What the fuck? They killed them. What the fuck? I ran as fast as I could to get away, crossing the street after street. Should I really go to the police station, or is that a threat to my life? I couldn't understand what had happened. Knowing now that my life wasn't the same, I slowly creeped my way around the district and back to the bus station at the 313 was running late again. I somehow pulled myself together. The image of the brain on the ground and the echo crackle of the pistol's discharge. I felt these visions would haunt me forever. My bus pulled in. I once again made my way towards the back of the group. A young Middle Eastern man sat quietly talking to themselves. I noticed one had a beard. I kind of took more notice of him because of the ring he was wearing. He also looked like jet-lagged quite a bit. I just sat down about 5 rows at the back, leaned back and put my hands on my head, elbows up, and tried to make out what has happened in my day in my mind. I thought until I drifted asleep. The squeal of the bus slowing had woken me up that this was my stop. I climbed out once again and made my way towards my house. Walking up my driveway, I noticed a small sticker had been placed on my letterbox. It was a small red dot. I thought the local kids were up to no good again, so I just peeled it away and went inside. I threw my jacket over my near armchair and went and sat on the sofa. I turned on the news again. The news, sadly, I turned on the news once again. The news said they had a new breakthrough in the CCD tragedy. A man, Osman bin Laden, which is not the other cunt, had made a video that the media says they found on Arab networks. The man's face flashed over and over. I felt like I knew him. I knew the face. I know I've seen it before. Hold up. I thought I thought that is the man with the ring on the bus. The news went on reporting the group Al-Terror has claimed responsibility for the deadly terror attack and gathered homeland states. The terror attack and gathered homeland states. The man appeared and spoke. His language was foreign with subtitles. Were flash fast, but the man said, "We of the eastern state have shown you the West the power of our reach can be. We have started a war to stop the Western devils, a war that will stop, but not stop, a war on everyone that does not believe in the true God." The transmission recorded ending. Sorry about my reading, people. I'm going blind in one eye. Once again, the president stood bold-faced with a bit of a smirk. The cameras refocus on him and his face changes to a sad, sorrowful face. I guess he didn't know that he was live yet. I don't really know, but the words he said sent chills through my spine, and it went like this. We, the superior state, the leader of the free world, have discovered this terrorist links and ties to Afghanistan, to the Middle East, and to the old Babylon. These crazy fanatics are against us and against our liberty. For the reason we have a chance at a new beginning, a new era, a new world command. Just like our forefathers wished, we would have a great chance at the new world command, and if we are successful, which we will be, the law will be a law of control and not one of the law of the jungle. I remember feeling like it was like a Star Wars movie and the evil empire had just threatened us. I couldn't understand yet what it was all about, this new world command. This was definitely another question I would have to answer in my film. I walked over to my laptop. It was a i5, so it wasn't slow, but it wasn't the fastest. I typed into my search engine Frugal, Vietnam veterans in a state with Mr. Parrot at the end. Wow, 3,000 results. I opened up each website and checked nothing. I checked more, nothing. I got around to having 33 left and decided I'd have a break and opened the fridge and pulled out a nice fresh one and cracked it. The taste was heavenly after the day I had. Who wouldn't have needed a nice cold beer to wipe away the worries? Well, I only wish it did. I returned to the computer and I opened up the 30-second website left. I read the heading, Crazed Vietnam Man Paints Bank Doors with Blood, screaming, "This is what you want, isn't it, you crazy satanic dogs?" The article went on to read that William Parrott had shown up 9 minutes past 11 just before the CCD tragedy, accompanied by 2 individuals that remain anonymous. Parrott had sprayed paint up on the door outside the bank's monuments, then splattered red paint using the paint cans and a brush all over the open entrance with the words, "We don't need your sect of Seth." He was then accompanied away by federal agents. This report can't be right. I was talking to him about 20 minutes after the attack. I read on. Mr. Parrott is believed to be a suspect in a brutal murder of 300 Vietnamese and remains in custody waiting for trial. Okay, this was getting interesting. A man that was just attacked, supposedly taken into custody by federal agents, was on the street corner around from my local deli. This was blowing my mind. I read at the bottom of the page, the man is being held by the Homeland Department for Home Security named EFMA, Emergency Federal Management Agency, Long Island HQ. I looked at the contact number and dialed it. Hello, you have reached the Department of Home Security. How can we direct your call? I replied, hi, my name's David Crowley. I'm chasing a man. He vanished from me before, and I was abducted by 3 men in a black clothing and balaclava. I see, sir. Can I have this man's name, please? I replied, Mr. Parrott, Mr. William Parrott. Okay, please hold. I'll find out what we can find out for you. I waited 28 minutes listening to the music from Disney's Sorcerer's Apprentice play on the hold message. The voice returned. Hi, sorry for taking so long, Mr. Crowley, but we have no listing for that name. I quickly replied, but I had just read the article saying he was being held there until his trial. The voice replied, okay, I'll check with our superior. Nothing has shown up on our database. I'll be back in a minute. The phone went back to the on-hold message. 2 minutes later, a deep-voiced man answered, hello, Mr. Crowley. I understand you are chasing an individual by the name of William Parrott. I'm sorry to inform you, but the article you read, it must have been a forgery or a prank, as the department has no listing of a Mr. Parrott or any crimes that you have said had committed. If you leave us your contact number, we will... Just going down the next page. We will keep you informed if anything further to your inquiry comes to light. Sorry, we can't be any further help. I gave them my number and my thoughts of how I had seen and the thoughts of how I'd seen the protesters treated in the street, slightly wary but feeling I wanted the information if they in future had come across it. I put down the phone and blankly stared at the computer monitor and the website. I was just told that was fake. My mind was twisting, headaches pushed into my skull. The stress level was going crazy. I decided to look up at the website one more. In the corner was a small blue and red pill with the words, wake up, flashing. It reminded me of the movie The Matrix when Morpheus asked Neo to choose his fate. I said, okay, what the hell? I clicked the website. It said, we know what you know, but we know what's to come and how to make it happen. We wish to talk to you. Wait, we will contact you. Spam, bloody spam. I closed the website, lifted the phone, and sent a text message to Sandra. Been a crazy day. Hope you're okay, princess. Hope you and the princess are okay. Talk tomorrow. She replied, and we talked for an hour. I never said anything about my day as I wanted to hear... I never said anything about my day as much as I just wanted to, but heading to bed. The message I seen crossed my mind. What a joke. That was laid... Oh, what the fuck is this? Wait a sec. This is all scattered. I closed the website, lifted the phone, and sent a text message to Sandra. Been a crazy day. I hope you and the princess are okay. Talk tomorrow. She replied, and we talked for an hour. I never said anything about the day as much as I wanted to, but headed to bed. The message I seen crossed my head. What a joke. I thought, what a joke was what I was thinking. I laid down and tried to get some well-deserved rest. Little did I know what day 2 had in store for me. Alright, I'll leave it at that for half an hour, and I'll put up another chapter in a couple of days. Alright, people, peace. This was the story that I was writing way before One Consciousness, and I had my full miracle and my connection through to the outside, and understood exactly what everything is going on now. This was the messages that were getting pushed through me back then to still try to push into this world to give people an understanding of how easy shit can happen and what can happen if things are done the wrong way and if they're done the right way. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll get back to you with chapter 2, which will be the mystery, the website Mystery Man, and I'll probably put that up tomorrow for you. Alright, people, peace. Alright, everyone, I thought I'd do something different. So, g'day YouTube. Hope everyone's doing well out there, and everyone's living well in these days that are all falling apart, and we're all keeping confident and keeping our energies balanced, and we're all remaining strong. So, as promised, here is the next chapter to the book that I wrote that was called A Story of Protection or Enslavement. And I'll continue where we're up to, which is chapter 2, which is the website Mystery Man. Alright. I slept like a baby that night. It must have been the constant adrenaline or the exhaustion of the day, but after my head hit that pillow, I was knocked out cold. Speaking of knocked out, bruising around my cheek had fully become surface from when the officer at the CCD assaulted me. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of the neighbours yelling, Kath and Ray yelling at the top of their heads about their financial problems. I opened the window and yelled, knock it off, it's too early, Ray. Ray yelled back, go fuck yourself, David, and I was just about to get my daily clothes on and go and confront Ray, when in the far right corner of my eye I caught a black, slow-moving square silhouette. The morning sun blocked it from being seen directly. The shadow moved closer, passing through the sun, blocking my vision. My eyes focused in. It was the same black matte vehicles that I had seen in the convoy. This was a solo one, but the armoured military-looking police officers stood on the side of the rails as one drove. These had markings of IFMA. The armoured van moved up the street and turned into Ray's house. I ducked down behind the window frame and moved into the laundry to where I could watch Ray's driveway inconspicuously through a small portico-shaped window. The men jumped to the ground. This is it. I watched as a large man gets out from the vehicle and approaches Ray's door and knocks. The two large thumbs shook the door, vibrating the framework. The two large thumps shook the door, vibrating the framework. IFMA, open the door. Before Ray could answer, the other men had approached the door with a small battering ram and wedged the door, smashing it open. The glass works inside the frame. The officer throws in a flashbang. I think it was. Well, it was a loud bang, and you could see the flash through the windows of Ray's, and the officers could be heard yelling. The noise dulled to nothing, and then the officers emerged one by one. One had Ray in handcuffs. His face was bleeding badly from around his eye socket. The next had his wife locked in handcuffs, escorting them to the armoured car. The car reversed as the officers climbed back up onto the railings, and it descended down my street. Yeah, sorry about that. I actually lost the place and the music in the background went into an ad. So, a loud bang, and you could hear the flashbang through the windows of Ray's. Officers could be heard yelling. The noise dulled to nothing, then the officers emerged one by one. One had Ray in handcuffs. His face was bleeding badly from around his eye socket. The next had his wife locked in cuffs, escorting them to the armoured car. The car reversed as the officers climbed back up onto the railings and then descended down my street into the horizon. Today, I was determined to get hold of my camera crew and start the idea of the movie I was going to call Grey Fate. The grey being the white of the politicians and the black being the cold darkness of the newly enforced Homeland Security and the actions towards us civilians that they have shown me recently. My curious nature had once again inflated my adrenaline, and I rushed back to the door, opened it and darted across the backyard and scaled the fence to Ray's property. I moved towards the back door. It was one of those old rusted fly screen doors flapping in the wind, with a slowly decaying wooden door peeling paint falling from around it. I pushed against the door. It was locked. I thought, well, the front door is no longer there. Do I dare just enter, where I can be seen by everyone? As I snuck around, slowly creeping along the wall and quickly rushed into the front door, I could hear my phone ringing next door. I decided to answer it later, and I moved up into Ray's living room. Nothing surprising. A few old pizza boxes, some weed on the table in a bowl, and a collection of old news articles in a pile. Nothing out of the normal in the headlines consisted of cats that had been rescued by the fire department. But, nothing of the normal. The headlines consisted of cats that had been rescued by the fire department. Must have been cats, I thought to myself. I looked further into the house and opened a bedroom door, blood-stained the bedroom door, blood-stained the bed quilt. In the corner of the room was a small, older IBM computer linked to a website called The True Patriots Know. I heard about the TBK website but never thought that I'd seen it since it was hidden on the dark web. I read the first few articles. The Enslavement Plan. It talked of an ancient society that was against all teaching of God. It talked how they had influenced their religion through secrecy and occult means, placing agents into all forms of society and then supporting them to gain positions of power. It went on with a quote from one of the groups themselves. It's better to control the shepherd than the sheep. It enforces the true doctrine. It gave the group a name, the Respected Knights of the True Cross of the Illuminated Ones. The Illuminated Ones? This has to be the group that Parrott was talking about, the sect of Seth. I heard as I lifted up a car door slam. I walked to the front and walked outside. In my driveway now there was a black slender limousine. I hadn't ordered anyone and no one I know has one, so why is it there? I walked out further towards the car. I could see a man standing in a suit by my door ringing the bell. Mr. Crowlton, are you in? He kept ringing and asking. Hi, I'm Mr. Crowlton. How can I help you, bud? He just turned around and the other car's door slammed behind me. I watched as suited men walk towards me. I felt a black cloth being forced over my head and then a large blow to the back of the head. I must have remained unconscious for hours. I woke up on a private jet. The waitresses there were topless, and the plane seat rows remained to seem empty apart from me and what I could see. I focused back to the reality, and dazed and very confused, I went to move my hands. I couldn't. They had been binded to my chair, my legs the same. I started to yell, help. What is going on? Help me, what is going on? One of the waitresses approached me. She was German or Dutch. I couldn't make the accent, but she kept saying something, then pushed the mobile phone against my ear. Hello, Mr. Crowlton. My name is, let's just say, Mr. X. I know that you have been looking for Mr. William Parrott. I can help you if you can help me. I said angrily back, who are you and what do you want with me? The man replied with, I assure you I mean no harm. I want to help you find Mr. Parrott. In fact, I have Mr. Parrott. What? Why am I here? What are you doing this to me for? Well, Mr. Crowlton, we of the Fellowship don't take kindly to meddlers. We of the sect of Seth watch everything, and lately you have been brought into our attention too many times to account for. What do you seek, Mr. Crowlton? Answered without hesitation, I want to know what's happening with Mr. William Parrott. He's been looked after, is all you need to know. Would you like to see him? I answered hesitatingly back, yes, I said loudly. Very well, the voice replied, then the phone went dead. The waitress approached again, smiling and untying me from my chair, my arms and then my legs. Come, she said. I heard it as clear as day. It must have been with the foreign accent that had broken English, but I lifted myself out of the chair. She reached out and took my hand and led me to the curtain at the end. She removed the curtain, and a blood-drenched limber body of a Mr. Parrott hung there, still alive, his legs bruised and battered, and his clothes showed signs of torture. The waitress reaches up and grabs his mouth and opens it. My stomach rolled over itself and tightened into knots. His mouth had no tongue. His stub from where they had removed his tongue remained bleeding. Life was still in his eyes, but his body was falling from the bleeding out. The woman advances to me again and slides her hand down into her skirt and removes a bit of paper and passes it to me. The note said, "Stop this or this will happen to you." All I remember after that is someone behind me pulling me back to the seat and holding my eyelids open as the waitress walked towards me, towards Mr. Parrott, and inserted a kitchen knife into the side of his neck and slowly slides away right across his throat, his mouth gargling blood and his body falling limp, and then blackness again. I woke up in the street next to my house. My head hurt, and I had a large lump sticking out the back of my skull, not going to lie, it hurt. Despite the pain, I once again lifted myself and walked back towards my house, entering the driveway. I could see police tape, "Do not cross," all over the entrance and the side windows to Ray's house. The door had been blocked off, and one lone officer stood guard by the door, normal closed, with his squad car parked up on the verge in front of Ray's house. I walked up my driveway while passing the letterbox. Strange, that red sticker was back, and the small red dot that had been placed in almost the exact same place that I had peeled it from. Again, I reached down to remove it. The sticker. I reached down to remove the sticker when my eyes met with the officer's. As my arms reached down to the letterbox, the officer began to get more fidgety, and then he called out, "Move away from that, please. That is government official business." I asked, what is it there for? He said, "Each district has its own stickers, either placed on a letterbox or a verge." He went on to say it's for Homeland Security drill exercises, and it was now a federal crime to remove the sticker without the proper authorization. I looked back. Drills? What kind of drills? Or nothing to worry about, citizen. It's just precautions to keep us all safe from now the war of terror that is threatening our freedom. Better to be safe than sorry, right? I said questionably, right. He then turned and proceeded back to Ray's porch and started guarding the front door again. I went inside and straight to the TV. I put on the news again, the same story repeated day in and day out. I decided I should hold off on the film for now. Too many occurrences that had happened in my life had been flipped around in 2 days. I really wanted to know what new laws had been passed. I ignored the news for too long. I opened up Frugal and typed, "Our new laws of the war on terrorism." The search engine listed so many conspiracy websites, but then I come across the government official state and boundary laws in act of fighting terrorism. The document read as follows: "Due to the overwhelming attack on our homeland, soil liberties will have to take a stand on the side for now." It went on a bit with governmental propaganda, but when I got to the executive orders our president had signed, my head dropped, and my heart too. The orders went like this. 1. People must not amass in more than 3. If anyone is caught doing this, they will be forced to be open to the police actions. These actions are classified. 2. In the event of a terror attack, the Constitution will be suspended of the right now. We have partly suspended the Constitution, but if more attacks are made, more constitutional sacrifices must be called for order. 3. All private land and personal resources will be removed from that set individual for the purpose of our Nation and Homeland Security Protection Act. 4. Any websites that are forbidden to view your local or state government if viewed and result with federal detainment until those set individuals are proven innocent. 5. All police must be upgraded in battlefield tactics as well as homegrown terrorism tactics. All federal police must have fully upgraded, up-to-date military gear to protect the people and its interests. All citizens are to receive a mark if the Constitution becomes fully suspended due to the threat and the war on terror. Please remember, this is for your own safety. Obey peacefully to help better yourself and our great nation. This was what was passed in 2 days. These laws are insane. Our forefathers fought for our rights and made the Constitution to make sure that these kind of laws could never pass. I knew our Constitution well. Well, my dad, he's passed now, but he was a strong patriot. He made me recite the whole entire Constitution before I was 13. I knew how to load and assemble an assault rifle by 14. So this was my natural way of thinking. I always ignored Dad when he ranted on about troops in our streets and martial law taking over domestic and foreign governments. It seemed to be so unrealistic to me at the time. But who would have thought that in that 1 hour our future of our lives could change forever? My phone buzzed and I looked down unknowingly. "Unknown caller." "Strange," I answered. "You seem to want to know more, my friend. I want to help you. My name is Phil Schneider. Can we meet? I answered yes. Phil Schneider, can we meet? Oh, Schneider, sorry. Phil Schneider, can we meet? I answered yes. I would like to know what you know, and I will be armed. My last meeting with someone turned out not so good. Understandable. I will send you the time and the place. Come alone and watch your sides. Eyes are everywhere. After you get this message, I want you to go to your mailbox and open it. Don't worry about the guard. He's, sleeping, the voice giggled. I walked out the front towards the letterbox and opened it. Inside was an envelope and an upside-down triangle with an eye in the middle, with no smoking red circle stamped over the top. Open it, it read on the front. Before reading the envelope, I glanced to see where the guard was. Sure enough, the guard was laying down flat on the porch. I'm not sure if he was sleeping or dead, but the way things were, I wasn't going to the... But the way things were... Sorry, I just got lost where I was. On the porch, not sure if he was sleeping or dead, but the way things were going, I didn't really want to find out. I opened up the envelope. It said, National Park, 3:30 a.m. I looked at the time. It was 9 p.m. I had hours to cross town and to reach the destination. I rang the taxi service and asked for a taxi from my house to the park. The operator said, one is in the area. My wait should not be long. I stood by the mailbox waiting, anxious to get going, and the taxi light could be seen in the coming closer. It pulled into my driveway. I watched as the headlights trailed a beam of light across Ray's house. As we reversed out the driveway, I couldn't help but wonder if the cab driver had seen the officer dead or out cold at Ray's. The taxi turned to the left. Hey, we're supposed to be going to the right. The Middle Eastern man looked Middle Eastern. The man looked Middle Eastern, but spoke with a strong American accent. No, this is the quicker way. Just a quicker way. Sit back, you relax. My phone buzzed again. The message said, that's not a taxi. Get out. I knew that the taxi driver had no idea about the pistol I had tucked securely in my jacket. I had grabbed after the mystery man Phil had requested this meeting. I asked again, you're going the wrong way, turn around. The man said, no, this is right. Without thinking, I put my gun to the back of his head and demanded him to tell me who he is and to answer. He said, okay, you got me, mister, you got me. I said, okay, explain, and pushed the gun harder to the back of his skull. He said, chill, dude, we were hired by some men to come and pick you up, that's all I know. Where are you taking me? I don't know, but look at the dash, it has its GPS pre-programmed. I'm just supposed to take you there. I told the man to get the fuck out of the car, demanding it loud. He shook with fear and stopped the car to a halt, opening the door, and sprinted straight across the road into an oncoming semi-trailer. His body basically disintegrated before my very eyes. The bones just pulverized, and a dead, limp, flattened carcass of the man is all that remained. I heard a woman call the police. I jumped out from the back and into the front seat and pushed down the accelerator. I pushed the GPS to see where I was going. Read blank, it's a read blank, it's the taxi driver was lying. But hold up. The GPS read blank. It's like the taxi driver was lying. I collected my thoughts and drove down the lonely freeways. Not many people were out at this time, apart from the law enforcement that had the dealings that had been having with them lately. Reassured me I didn't want to encounter any of them, any of the way to meet with Phil. I didn't want to count any of them along the way to meet Phil. I drove, passing roadblocks and small checkpoints. By taking slight detours, it felt like I was in no man's land. So desolate and abnormally quiet. I could see Black Hawk helicopters in the distance. I'd never seen so many in one group. I parked the car up for 20 minutes in a gas station, ducking down as I watched the choppers fly overhead and towards my home's direction. I pulled back out into the road again and began my journey again. It was 40 minutes to 3:30. I had to speed up my pace. I had to make sure to meet Phil. I pushed harder at the accelerator, gaining more and more speed. I must have flew the last 100 kilometers. because when I got to the park the time was only 3:10 a.m. I decided I would look around a bit before my meeting time with Phil, this mysterious stranger. The park was wildlife. Park animals wandered freely inside. The gates and the trees seemed to be well preserved. A giant sign stood out at the entrance, IFMA controlled area, sanctioned property by the United Nations. I tried to ignore it and just move on. I watched as the minutes pushed by, looking over my shoulder every few seconds, making sure I wasn't being watched. It got to about 3:29 when a car pulled up to the park's entrance. The headlights flashed a few times, and the car then proceeded to creep towards me. The car then pulled up to my side, and the window then rolled down. There was an elderly, grey-haired man, chubby and losing his hair, not completely bald, but losing it nonetheless. He said, "Get in." I nodded, and I opened the car's door and sat in the passenger seat. He said, "Sit back, we got quite a ride. When we get there, I'll tell you everything." I placed my head back against what felt to be a soft seat backings. I drifted to sleep again. Who could blame me? My life was becoming exhausting. I dreamt I was inside of a giant machine, and everything that we knew was wrong. These cameras kept watching me. I ran, but every direction I faced there was a camera watching me. The cameras got bigger and bigger, like they had been inflating, and then started to crush me. I woke up from it like a dream, as if you were falling, but I was awake. Phil had turned the radio on. Some oldie song was playing. I listened to the lyrics as I watched the road's cat's eyes go under us and pass us by. We came to an old farm. It was out in the sticks, hidden away behind trees, lost to the wilderness. Phil said, "Okay, here," and upsy daisy, out we go. I thought to myself, what a strange man, but that didn't stop me from getting out and following him. He walked to the front door and waved some hand signals. The door then clicked and clanked as if someone on the other side could be heard undoing a lot of safety latches. The door creaked open and two people stood there, a young boy and an elderly woman. They said, "Enter, and enter quick." I made my way in single profile behind Phil through the door. The same symbol on the letter in the mailbox was plastered over the walls, giant posters of it. The World Revolution. I walked down 3 or 4 corridors before coming to a stop. The elderly woman approached me. "Do you have a cell phone?" I replied, "Yes, it's right here." I lifted my arm out holding my new model Z phone, smartphone. She took it from me and opened the back. She removed the SIM card and asked if there's any information or contacts that I'd need. I knew most of the information I needed was at home. I could always retrieve it. I said no. Then she lifted the SIM card up and rubbed a strange-looking magnet against it. In it, the card's microchips decayed the circuit board and become soft and flexible. Then she inserted it into a metal box. "It's okay now. Now we can enter. No eyes to see you anymore, Mr. Carlton." She pushed a glowing red light on the wall. A rumble could be felt. The floor and the neighbouring foundation. The wall to the right folded back, and a room covered with all kinds of notes and articles had been pinned to the wall. It looked like a Madman's Paradise conspiracy magazine, piled into all tall stacks of pictures of alleged real UFO sightings, Bigfoot, but one was clean and it had new photos on it. It looked closer at the photos. I spotted Mr. Parrott, what looked to be him definitely. He was surrounded with dead Vietnam men and women's heads and bodies scattered all around him. He stood blood-soaked with his machete dripping, the blood from the 300 that he had just slaughtered. This was true? Mr. Parrott really was wanted for these crimes? Phil must have seen something in my facial expression. He put my hand on my shoulder and said, "It's not true. He killed those people, yes, but he was not himself at that time. That answer is a big no, my friend. Come, I'll explain." William was a bright young man, striving for achievements. He joined his local army reserves and he practiced day in and out and wanted to be the best at soldier that he could and that was possibly going to be. His achievements granted him the acknowledgements within ranks, and his story of his marksmanship spread like fire throughout like dried up wheat. The higher officials took notice and recommended him for training program. They confronted him and made the proposition they wanted him to join a secret spy program run by the Agency Central Intelligence, the ACI. This group was clandestine. They worked in locked labs behind the most highest security walls. The programs were to take subjects that preceded excellence in the area of warfare and subdue the mind, blanket, and then reprogram it from nothing. The program was called KM Sultra. The KM was the abbreviation for the killing mind, and the Sultra was the programming technique. It was a sort of abbreviation they made for the original project Operation Butterfly program. The idea was to split the subject's personality to 2 or more or 3 could remain inside of what and be called to will at any future at any time using trigger words that a handler had embedded into the subject's subconscious. The original personality would become an alternate personality even though the subject remained the same in actions. The personality being portrayed would be blank, meaning it was a fake persona that looked like the subject, but it was not as they could, but it was not. They could answer things about their past. They knew the people that they used to know, but the personality was a hijack of the subject's natural form of life experience. Wow, I didn't even realize I wrote that all the way back then. That kind of blew me away because that's fucking, yeah. Okay, hold on. So you mean to say that William was one of these program people? I met him on the street. He seemed to be scattered, but things that he says seemed like he was more trying to say something rather than hide it. Are you saying he, at that time, was one of these blank personas? Good observation. To answer bluntly, no, he was not blank. Let me continue and everything will come to light, I promise. Now, where was I? Oh, okay. So, Mr. Parrott was taken by the ACI and inserted into the KM Sultra program. He endured many different kinds of psychological and physiological tortures and abuse. For months he was locked away and tortured with electrodes, beaten, raped, and programmed. A program called the Monarch program was used and embedded into the KM Sultra training. Training? You gotta be kidding me. They called that training? Yes, Mr. Crowley, training is what it was called. Anyway, it was called and still is called. Shall I continue? Yes, please do. This is fascinating to me. So the training continued for months, the day and the night. They broke him down to nothing, then started to re-educate him. Or should we just really say reprogram his subconscious mind to see that the conscious doesn't need to be controlled. It's the subconscious that the consciousness listens to. Implanting a message into the subconscious automatically allows the bypass of the conscious, making you able to control the actions of a subject in the future using a simple trigger that they implant into the sub. You know what I mean now on, so to make the story shorter, I'm going to refer to the subconscious as sub. So back to the story, Mr. Parrott's history. So as he endured such tortures and he was become a broken man, they then rebuilt him. No one could tell the difference. He seemed like normal attitude towards being a soldier, normal appearance in his attributes, and he was more focused. He was recruited by the US government when the Vietnam War broke out. He was a private mercenary for hire, enlisted at the top end when it come down to getting things done. They assigned him orders and he was told to go to Laos and Vietnam and wait for the further instructions. The days went by as the agency prepared him for the task ahead. The orders come in as he was to execute the entire area of the population, men and women, young or old. He was shocked as the orders and refused it at first, but then they had William's handler come and whisper into his ear. He immediately jumped up and grabbed the machete from the wall and rushed door to door, slaughtering the Asian natives, showing no remorse to anything that he was doing. He dissembled and decapitated and mutilated the entire population. In the center square, he stopped. The agency still does not know what happened to this day, but he awoke screaming. Pictures emerged of this tragedy not so long after, but they had images that had been doctored bodies showing all around him like he had massacred the entire 300 right there. The sad fact is, the whole charade was to cover up the cover-up a plan by the Illuminated Ones to depopulate the area for use as export-import hub for the military-industrial complex. They wanted a base and they wanted a war, but they wanted normal playoff of each sides. Now, what they had was an excuse to move in and gather the troops and evacuated them to the location where the crazed American slaughters the entire population of 300 in a small village hit by the headlines. William vanished not so long after he had escaped. The ACI vanished too. Until 3 weeks ago he emerged again. At this time he had somehow deprogrammed himself of the psychological programming and was the psychological program was incomplete, but thought to have been finished. Anyway, he repeated and he reappeared. Is this the main thing we want to look at here? He made a video on TubeLube where we were warning about the world about a global planned takeover. He talked about this group, the Illuminated Ones. He said that they were satanic at heart and they desired nothing more than the power and control. The house vibrated and the nearby vase from the desk, the Black Hawk, everyone, Black Hawk, be quiet, be quiet. I watched as the young boy ran to the room, flicking each of the light switches off. We all huddled against the wall and the thunder of the helicopter crossed across the house. You could hear the wisping of the blades leaving into the distance. About after sitting huddled in the corner for a while, making sure that the coast was clear, I asked, "Are we good now?" Phil was shaking. I know the military had started some extreme measures towards us as a mass, but he was really shaken. I asked Phil, "What's wrong? Are you all right?" He replied, "I thought they were coming for me. I thought they had found me." I asked you never told me how you found me. We didn't find you, Mr. Crowley. You found us. We tracked the trace of the user of the website that we had, the Matrix-style ad. We wanted people that were awake to see it. We watched you for a few weeks and then understand you want to make things right. This is why you are here, and that is why I'm speaking to you. But who are you, Phil? And that's where that chapter ends. And the next chapter that I'll put up is Chapter 3, The Story of the Rogue Informer. So I hope you enjoyed it. That is Chapter 2, just like I said, of my book. That is copyright to me. And the actual title of the book is called The Story of Protection or Enslavement. So peace, love, and respect all. And I hope this just allows you to sit back and listen to a scenario of what could take place just if we don't do the right thing in the world. And it's a message that's written right in this book that's trying to give people the true understanding of how the world works and what really goes on when you read right through it and see through all of those facades that we have put in front of us to actually say something's one way when it's another. So, peace, love, and respect, like I said, and I'll get back to you another time. Keep safe out there, keep your hygiene, and remember to always balance your energies and keep hold of yourself and keep in contact with your spirit and keep in connection to the source, and everything will be alright for you no matter what goes down. Alright, peace, love, and respect. Yeah, g'day YouTube and everyone out there. So this is the next chapter to the book I wrote ages ago called The Story of Protection or Enslavement, which was a dedication to David Crowley in real life for the person that was murder-suicide. And basically, if you've been following it, well, here's the next chapter, so enjoy. I hope everyone's keeping well out there and looking after yourselves and your family and helping each other in a time of need like this, as the only way that we'll ever break through what's going on right now in the world will be only if we work one and we be one as all together and work as a collective to help each other and to help those less fortunate, etc. So peace, love, and respect, and here's the rest of the next chapter to the book. Chapter 3, Story of the Rogue Informer. Phil looked at the ground. Who am I? Okay, David, I'll tell you, but it's a long story. So, here's the start. I'm an ex-black project engineer. I've worked on things that would amaze and terrify you. Things that the general masses are blind to. So, I was about 20 8 years of age, I studied hard in the area of hypothetical physics, astrophysics, aerophysics, and general physics, and more. I was a sponge. I loved to learn. It was a high to me each time. I learned something new. The more I learned, the more I grew, and the more the high for it grew. I broke antimatter code in my early 30s that brought the attention of some rather shady men. I was so naive at the time that they offered me a job as a remote site in Nevada desert. I had to leave all contact with the outside world. I would be paid handsomely, but I also had to sign an agreement. The agreement was if I talked about anything, had seen anything, or had been taught, I would lose my life, no questions asked. Do you believe in aliens, Mr. Crowley? I shrugged. I believe that the universe wasn't made for us just to look at, so yes, I guess. How would it make you feel if I told you that our world governments have been working in secret since Eisenhower's Grey Pact was made? Grey Pact? Oh, aliens, oh, come the fuck on, Phil. This has got to be a joke. Where's the cameras? Where's the Too Blue prank? I said jokingly. Phil stared into a deep and blank back at me. Oh, Mr. Carlton, I wish I could tell you this was just a prank. Unfortunately, I cannot. There are aliens. I've seen them. I've talked to them in the military higher-ups. I've talked to them. The military higher-ups know all about them. They have been here way before the human race. The pact that was signed allows the aliens. There are many forms, the Zodiacs, the Greys, the Reptilians. Let us just say the reptilian lizard men for this one. Well, they allow the reptoids to abduct human male or female for study, probing and interbreeding with the human race. Something about their genetic code needing the DNA to survive, but in exchange the aliens would give the illuminated ones technology of the wildest imaginations. They abducted the first victims, and soon after that we started to see microprocessors being made for everything. The illuminated ones gathered the technology to this day. The machines... Hold on, just move it down a bit. Illuminated ones, technology with the... gathered the technology to this day. The machines and technology in advance to the original outside world is 10 to the thousands each year. The military advanced 10 years to the normal populace's one. The pact was signed in 1954. The president met with the Greys and the Reptoids on many accounts after that. The Greys had to meet at night, but the Reptoids had some form of vibration manipulation that they could use to look like us. But yes, just let's say for scientific purposes, they had a force field over their original structures, so we would see them as human. Would you be surprised at how many are actual? You would be surprised at how many are actual members of government and society in general. But they met none the less each time discussing another move. They called this the New World Command, and to this day they are still pushing for it. Now you understand that it was the aerophysics space. I was an aerophysics space engineer at Area 51. I reserved the alien technology and handed it to the higher ups. I've been responsible for the first nano supercomputer I pulled from the Hanabu 2. That craft wasn't entirely extraterrestrial, but the craft allowed the government to take it and use it. Do you know how fast computers can run? Yes, of course I do. The fastest computer is about 6 gigahertz, right? Phil said, let's take a break. I'll tell you more after. Phil lifted up to stand and said, Stan, come with me. We both walked into the kitchen. The elderly woman and the young boy stayed in the room, still sitting on the floor. How do you like your coffee, Mr. Crowden? Black, 2 sugars. Phil, have you got anything to eat? I haven't had anything to eat for days. I'm sure that I can fix you something up, buddy. He handed me a sandwich filled with ham and lettuce. Thanks, this will do. I took a deep bite into the bread. It was rather stale, but it was good to my taste buds. It was good. My taste buds tingled as the taste of the ham touched my tongue. God, I was hungry. I ate the whole thing within seconds. We moved back down the hallway, and to the hidden room and I sat back down and Phil continued his story. So the fastest computer chip to the masses is about 6 gigahertz and climbing, but to our top intelligent agencies break speeds in the quantum. Thanks for our reverse engineering of damaged, shot down, malfunctioning, unidentified craft. So I was brought in, getting back to my explanation of who I am. Phil laughed out loud. I found out many a secret. They put fluoride in our drinking water to dumb the masses. Toothpaste does the same. We worked for ages disassembling the ET craft and reassembling it for our military use. In secret, of course. I started becoming overwhelmed with how much that they had hid from the public. So one day I uploaded documents from the Area 51 handbook for personal to a website. I ended up uploading more than I found. Big, dark, clandestine secrets that they didn't want anyone to find out, but I did. And I shared them with the world. I mean, who would have thought that the change from analog to digital was just a psychological control over our minds? Higher frame rates of our conscious bypass to the subconscious sees all. Starts throwing out ancient occult symbols of the order, and you have a brand new religion doctrine. The military knew a long time ago the effects of alpha and beta waves. Ever wondered why, when you use a camera on a TV, you see the flickering rolling lines? Honestly, I can't say I have. It's the mind control, boy. It's been in the works for decades. Create a world, run everything in that world by merging everything together. And then through the few boogeymen, fake terrorists, you can play the public's reactions like a chess game and play either side off against each other while the masses get their heartstrings pulled. They run to you asking for their protection.
Harry Styles.
This is the great secret I let loose to the world and uploaded 500 gigs of data to the web, names, bank records, payment schedules of crooked agents. But the thing that really made a tombstone waiting for me is, are you ready? This is kind of a crazy but true. What is, I said, trying to piece together his story in my head. I have to admit, I felt really overwhelmed. You really sure you're ready? This is probably going to bring you to a disreality state after I tell you I don't want to be responsible for sending you to the nut house, Mr. Crowton. Are you sure that your brain can handle this stuff? Phil, mate, I'm about as ready as I'm going to be. Fire away. Okay, you asked for it, so here it comes. The story of the aliens and the illuminated ones. Okay, God. Okay, listen, because I won't repeat this. This can have you marked for life, and this can have your life marked for death very quickly. Have you ever read the Bible? I replied, regretting the answer. No, I remember some Sunday school teachings, but the general book, not too much. Why? Because, young David, it was true. A lot was mixed around the basics of what the document said. They were preparing for a war against Christ from the Bible. It all starts with the Adam and the Eve story. From the original, Adam was made from a rib, and yada yada. The truth is, Adam was created by a race of ancient alien beings called the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, and the Anunnaki came here to mine gold for their atmosphere for the planet Ceres. On their arrival, they found a race of monkeys, and they had probability to them. After a few medical tests, they found that they could bioengineer a new species. It was that was the Pro-Magnum man and woman. We were slaves, genetically created to be slaves. Some of the aliens were good-natured, and they taught us things like astronomy, agriculture, showed us how to move with the stone within air, showed the women how to paint their faces. But there was also the dark ones. They seek to treat us like animals, no care for our well-being, our security, nothing. We were nothing but cattle. They even fed on us, the human race. The dark ones did studies on the new created specimens. They kept retrying and retrying because they thought that they had made a mistake. The test showed something inside that didn't create for the life essence, as they didn't create us all. The physical body showed all normal tests, but when they studied the electromagnetic pulses inside of our bodies, something was off to them. Somehow, a part of they didn't create was inside of us. They become envious of us. We started showing signs that a new energy was affecting us. It was allowing us free thinking and free will. It wasn't the plan that they wanted a race of it wasn't the plan. They wanted a race of subduable slaves, not a collection of lab rats that to them were evolving in such a way it broke the aliens' technological experiences. They spent weeks torturing the women and men. They began bleeding people, hanging them and drinking the collected blood, hoping that they would gain the energy they couldn't understand for themselves. No matter how much blood they drank, they couldn't gain the energy that they found from the newly created race. The ones that were good tried to stop the Dark Ones, but the Dark Ones had the power. They had the same done to their own to show if they liked our race so much, then they should join us. After the good intentions of the few extraterrestrials had been removed, the Dark Ones created a group in a coven that they confined in each other and made laws for the creation, since it was not working the way it had been planned. The new leaders announced the creation of a new city with a garden as far as the eyes could see. This new great city was to be called Eden. I butted in. Eden? You mean the Garden of Eden? I remember that from Sunday school. Yes, the one and the same. They tortured us as slaves, making us mine gold, minerals, cut slate, stone, and the creation of their city. They made a planned map and showed the worker slaves that they wanted and how to build the worker and how to build. The workers worked for years. When one died, another was genetically created. The use of anti-gravity helped move a lot of the giant stones, but it wasn't enough. The city that they wanted to build had a flaw in the plan also. For days into weeks, the Dark Ones gathered as the council and tested theories on why the city was designed was not working. The people had no idea what they meant wasn't working, as far as the slaves could see that they had been obedient and done what their good masters had said. The Dark Ones discovered the power that they wanted for the city was run from the Earth's ley lines or the dragon lines to the ancient religions. So they had slaves split into worker groups and then used spaceships to transport them to different ley line energy vortexes around the world. They built in Egypt, Easter Island, Australia, South America, the United Kingdom, and many more places. We still see the remnants of the structures to the present day. They built the pyramids and giant monuments depicting the gods and the hybrid alien-human energy they wished that they could create. Once all the structures had onto anti-gravity engines sealed in at the lower chambers, the inside structures would resonate and connect with the planet's ley lines. As they did this, the vibrations of the planet changed and the whole city of Eden lifted up into the air. They hovered one above the biodome. They hovered and put the biodomes into place. They launched it into the atmosphere and further traveling deep into space towards their home Sirius. They set the destination into their computers and Eden was flowing into a giant lake surrounded by fire. The Dark Ones called for the Prince of Sirius to rule over the new city of Eden. He arrived with the horns sticking out of his head, strange marking and scales over his body, the long forked tail, dark eyes rolled that had snake pupils glowing like fire. He wasn't the royalty of the Anunnaki. He was one of the same race, but we still ain't sure, even the documents even said. But he was supposed to have been their creator for the amassed of the Dark One's council, and announced himself the new title that he would be called from now on, President of Eden. He had all of the most intelligent practices of the race He had all the most intelligent practices of the race tried to extract this strange life force energy that they couldn't understand. He tried to use different techniques from one race. Only he said he had discovered an error in the genetic manipulation procedure. He explained to them that the reason the human slaves had this energy is because of their vibration levels were a lot lower than the Anunnaki Nephilims or the Reptoid Master. The Anunnaki had a reptile that created them. Yes, they believed that he would bring them the light of the prophecy they believed. So the Reptoid president tried to lower his vibrations using DNA strands from the original money DNA structure, or the original money DNA structure from the pro-magnum quantum spirit species. The creature lowered his vibration down to the equivalent to the humans in secret. He slowly started to mold into something else. His long, elongated claws had become more stubby. His tail shriveled up, and his skin began to show mutations to the pigments. It had turned human, but the eyes' pupils remained reptile-shaped. He looked down at his body that was one of a man. He looked identical to anyone, and he could pass as human. He thought, but these eyes, why did these eyes remain, he thought.
So what's Soldier Boy's deal?
Alright, people, I just had to go do something. Sorry about that. So, the creature lowered its vibration down to the equivalent of the humans in secret. He slowly started to mold into something else. His long, elongated claws, hands become more stubby. His tail shriveled up, and his skin began to show mutation to the pigments. It had turned human, but the eye pupils remained reptilian-shaped. He looked down at his body that was one of a man. It looked identical to anyone else he could pass by as human, he thought. But these eyes, why did these eyes remain? It raised its vibrations and slowly reformed into its original look. The creature had no idea why it couldn't create its eyes to be the same as the human race, the slave human race. He went back to more theories and studies, teachings. He tried everything. He decided that he would shift into this form and insert himself into the slave city as one of them, and find out the secret why they turned out so different from the creation that he has desired. He shifted into human form by lowering his vibrations again, and dressed himself in slave clothing, and went and mingled to find one of what the slaves knew. He made himself a mason in the builders' quarters. No one noticed the prince. He watched as the slaves went about their works. He watched as the slave smashed his hands while chiseling out one of the projects the Dark Ones had planned, as another worker stopped and come over to the bleeding man and ripped his own clothing off to give the other man clothing to give to the other man. He then started to wrap up the man's wound. This confused and frustrated the Reptoid Prince. He had no idea of human compassion. Damn right, that's right. It made the creature so crazy. Why would they do this? Why is their action so different to be slaves? He slipped away without the slaves seeing him and went to the council to discuss his findings. No matter what they theorized, none of the ideas explained this action to them. The creature slipped back into the slave quarters, this time looking like someone entirely different to before. He watched more and seen a young girl pick a flower and smell it and smile. How can a race so enslaved have such careful habits? The more he pondered on it, the more enraged he got. The vibration levels shifted, and every one of the slaves watched as he shifted back to the Reptoid Prince Master. Master, they chanted, and bowed facing the prince. Ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. What was that? I listened as the ground started to shake. This is the NYPD. You are under arrest. Please come out in single file with your hands up. If you fail to do so, you will be detained by the other police actions. Fuck, it's the cops. I looked around, I'm panicking. Phil gave me the hand gesture to keep quiet. Shh, follow us. He walked up to the blank wall and pulled out a small what looked to be infrared device and slid down a small metal plate next to the articles on the wall. Beep, beep, beep. Gaskets could be heard, or cogs or something. I watched as the floorboards folded over each other like a group of sliding doors. After it opened, it revealed a small, narrow tunnel. Phil waved the boy and the woman through, then waved for me to come. I started to walk towards the descending passage. As I got about 2 feet away, the door flung open to the main entrance. Law enforcement officers dressed in full black with riot shields and the letters IFMA plastered across their backs and shields. Freeze! I looked to Phil. He was pulling the lever of the floorboards, started moving again. I panicked like hell and turned and lunged myself towards Phil and the boy and the elderly woman, and thumped into the dirt into the passage, and turned my head to where the police had just entered from, shining lights in my face as they entered into the secret article room. The floorboards clicked and slid back to the original formation's path. The path was blocked. Phil grabbed me by the arm. Hurry, we haven't got much time. We continued deeper into the passage. Along the sides were strange, bright LED lights that looked to be running wireless. I had to ask as we were moving, how is there no power running these lights to the wall? That's Tesla tech, son, he replied. I knew a lot about nuclear Tesla myself and had in my student years of school did a paper on the inventor. I was still amazed that his patents weren't being used right now. As I turned the last corridor to the passageway, we come to a dead end of a giant metal door blocked its path. Phil once again waved the device down, and the same style metal plate fitted into the wall accent. The plate beeped twice and rumbled as the door folded open. We slowly made our way outside. A mist filled the air. It was really hard to see, and it was cold. We were in some form of swampland. Sticks and reeds protruded out from the murky-coloured, smelly water. Phil pulled me in another direction. This way, hurry. They won't be far behind. We moved through the reeds, taking various forms of cover. My shoes were soaked as I felt the water sloshing around. My feet slipped back and forth as I moved each more pace forward. The reeds finished and a small opening of land with a barn was revealed. Phil and the others kept running up. Hurry, hurry, it's in here. The ground shook madly and a convoy of armoured vehicles approached from the left. The ground illuminated brightly. As I looked up, a chopper light was shining right down on us. I could see through the mist faintly, a rope dangling from it, and officers had started to rappel down. This was going to be a showdown and a half, I thought to myself, but I wasn't really ready to kill someone of the law at that. I'd lost vision of reality, and I was ready to fight. I hadn't done anything wrong, even though the only thoughts that kept going on in my head was that of Abby's birth and Sandra and myself's wedding day. Everything was so different then. I couldn't help but wish it was still like that. The now grounded officers that had repelled had started to move in formation towards us, shining their flashlights in our vision and to disorientate us. The chopper started making its way to the ground for landing. Armoured vehicles had pulled up in a JG formation and lifted some round device onto the roof. I wasn't sure if they could see me. I was backed into the reeds again. I watched Phil and the others looking back at me. Phil was waving his arms, yelling something I couldn't make out over the chopper landing nearby and the convoy's engines noises. The convoy had just turned off all their engines when I made out that he was yelling the sound, "Run, Dave," when he was yelling out, "Sound weapon, run, Dave." An ear-piercing screech, exactly the same as the one in front of the district where the tragedy had happened, ripped right through my ears. The intensity of it drove me into the murky water, holding my head, blocking my ears. The sound got more intense to me. It was causing excruciating pain around my temples and the back of my skull. I rolled into the water, trying to keep down. I forced my side of my head into wet slush, filled my ear with mud. I looked back to Phil. They had Phil and the other two on their knees in front of the barn. The armoured cars had been moved into place to shine their vehicles' high beams onto the three and the horde of officers. The sound stopped and the air began to clear a bit, my head still vibrating with the sounds echoing. intensity, my skull felt fragile and sensitive. The dark shadow could be seen moving towards Phil and the others. As the shadow emerged into the light, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the man that they called Osama bin Laden, the same Muslim man I seen on the 313 when returning from the city too. He walked staunchly towards the three and right up to them. I watched as he retrieved a 9mm Beretta from his jacket and shoot both the woman and the young boy in the top of the head. The blood splattered all down the front of the wooden barn's planks. Take him. They placed a black knapsack like the one that they had put over me over his head, tied his hands with plastic adjustable ties, then yanked Phil up onto his feet and escorted him into one of the armoured vehicles. They opened the car's personnel doors and forced Phil inside. 3 officers jumped inside and one went to the front and opened the door and climbed into the driver's seat. The horde of officers around slowly dispersed bit by bit. Leaving, they started up the car and rolled out, with Phil and the others took off in another direction. The chopper lifted and disappeared back into the horizon. I waited and waited when the coast was clear. I snuck up to the barn. I couldn't find a way in. I gave a pull. I couldn't find a way in. I gave up and pulled out my pistol and fired an entire clip of 13 into the tightly shot pattern, and then booted at the wooden planks until they finally gave in and collapsed inside. I could see a black car, and it had a limousine tinted windows, was approaching. More, I seen it was a Bentley, rather in nice shape too. I pulled the planks back more and more and squeezed through. A few assault rifles and landmines sat on a rack to the side of the parked car. A suit of body armour next to that, and the random boxes of ammunition. I couldn't see any keys though. I searched the barn from every nook and cranny and I couldn't find them. I decided I would have to try to hotwire the car. God knows how, but I was going to try. But first, since I had resources now, I intended on using them. I picked up the assault rifles and inspected them. I knew that they were I knew what they were. They were the FAD full automatic armor piercing hardpoints. This kind of only militia law enforcement use. I clicked out the clip and accidentally dropped it. It fell and rebounded next to the Bentley's back wheel arch. I kneeled down and rested my hands on the tire to reach down and get the clip. What do we have here? I felt something under my fingers. I pulled it out from on top of the tire. Car keys. My luck was changing. I opened the back door and I piled the landmines inside. I placed the rifles in the passenger seat and I walked over to the body armor. It looked new and custom. I lifted it and tried it on. It was way too big. I couldn't use it. I was disappointed and I threw it back. I threw it in the back seat just in case some armor was better than no armor. I kept thinking. After I made sure to check everything I could find, and I opened the car door and sat into the driver's seat and placed the key into the ignition. I turned it, and the dash and the HUD slowly displayed. I was ready. I was going after Phil. I didn't know how I was going to get him back, but I was determined to. Plus, if you really want to know, I wanted to know the end of his story. I picked at my head, forcing myself out, and said, let's get these motherfuckers, and then planted the accelerator down. Come on now, it's on. Alright, so that's the end of chapter 3, where the story continued from last time. Like I said, I hope everyone's doing well out there. I'm only really just putting this out there to allow people to have a idea of a different world that could happen from the state that we're going into right now by giving away a lot of liberties, etc., but also to allow people that are quarantined, etc., to have something to listen to and not be bored as fuck with having nothing to do all the time. So peace, love and respect to everyone. Remember, balance your energy bodies. Remember that the ethereal body is the main body, and when you balance that, your physical body will be alright. And just like all the occultists that everyone's always taught in the past and that, they know all this as well, so they don't want to tell you that. So your spirit body is what you look after, and your physical body will remain fine from any virus that they're trying to say will get you. So peace, love, and respect, everyone, and a big unconditional love to everyone out there. And I hope you enjoyed the chapter. Sorry about my eyes. Like I said, I'm blind in one eye, so it's hard for me to read sometimes. But the book will be released sooner or later, cheap as on probably just ebook, something like that. I don't know, just something cheap and shit that I can get out there for cheap, because there's not an instruction manual here. It's basically just a story, so I don't see why it will cost much at all. And there's not pictures in it, there's no diagrams, there's no examples, you know what I mean? Like the actual manual that was the consciousness. Yeah, g'day everyone on YouTube. I hope everyone's going good out there. And remember, in this time, everything's about the vibrational frequency and the resonance of your spirit connected to your body. Remember to build your bubble around you and protect yourself, knowing that you can. And that spirit is a lot stronger than anything that's going on right now and what you see. Remember, what you believe is what you create. So do not fall victim to the fear propaganda that's only there to weaken you down for starters. So, apart from that, this is the last chapter of the book that I wrote. A story of protection and enslavement. This was way before the Mandela effect, and I wrote this book over time, basically on my phone here and there. When I actually had some time, I'd sit there and I'd write a few pages, etc., etc. So, this is the last chapter I got up to of it. And after that, life changed and a lot of things happened. Then the miracles and the downloads and everything that led to the understanding of what we are and where we're from, and seeing the outside of this matrix reality. And then the one consciousness was brought, which was from the source itself. So, but all of these things I was doing before were training in the direction of what I was going to need in order to create that manual for society to get the full understanding of what everything really is. And right now, you can see that vibrational resonance and the frequencies of the consciousness and the energy is how everything is being used against us in the understanding of what we can't see, when we know already that you can use your spiritual body, balance your spiritual body to your kundalini and all your chakras, and make sure that your own biosphere that's connected to you, that is absolutely clean of anything that you allow in, including any frequency or vibration that is harmful to you as well. So remember, with all of this that's going on, your spirit body is actually the protector that can protect you more than anything that you could ever imagine. And it is there for that reason. You just have to use it. So peace, love, and respect, everyone. Anyway, before I read this, and here we go. So, chapter 4. If you remember the rehash, the last chapter, just go listen to the last chapters. It's just easier that way. So, oh Phil, where are you? I started my search by pulling out and following the path that the car took, that Phil went in. I drove for 20 minutes and came to a fork junction, and a sign below said Clover Green Grove. The other said Grandmaster Lodge. Itchy nose. And I just lost the bloody thing off the screen when I scratched my nose. Alright. And the other sign said Grandmaster Lodge of the Freemasons. I didn't know what way to go. I turned towards the grove and made my way up the spiralling roads with the forest all around, entering towards me in the distance. I could see an arch. It held the insignia of the old Egyptian hieroglyph-styled owl skull surrounding the entrance of the arch. What was this place? As I drove in through the arches, I passed a giant sign, Clover Green, only for the Bohemian property, and only for Bohemians. Property is under surveillance. I choose to ignore it. I really wanted to find Phil. I pulled about 10 car lengths more up the road when a set of headlights behind me showed in my rear view mirror. I could see it flickering to get my attention. It was a small black and white security 4-wheel drive. It gained closer and closer to the rear of the Bentley. It swerved to the side and accelerated up along it swerved to the side and accelerated up along the side of me. The driver was tooting the horn. Pull over, passenger. Pull over. The passenger was yelling and shining a torchlight at my car. I had no intention to stop, especially in this place. That I had no idea of where I was. I grabbed the steering wheel and clamped down tightly and pulled it hard right, slamming the Bentley against the front into the four-wheel drive's top of the front wheel arch. Both vehicles lost traction for a few seconds and then I regained focus. The other driver pulled to the back, drafting behind me, still yelling and tooting the horn abruptly. A loud crack come from the back window. Another large crack after that one. I watched the four-wheel drive's passengers' muzzles flash. I quickly slammed down my brakes at the same time, opening the door handle. The four wheels slammed into the back of the Bentley. With shattered impact, I jolted forwards as the force pushed my car forwards. I reached back and I grabbed the body armor from the floor behind the seat. Must have fallen during the car's forced transitions. I lifted the door handle and brought my other arm to the front of me, lifting up the body armor as a shield. In front of me and opening the door, harshly jumping out, I retrieved my pistol with the other hand and rushed the two perpetrators down, still disorientated from the crash. One was bleeding in the front end of the four wheel was crushed. From the front end of the four wheel was crushed, the front folded back like the wheel axis had snapped upwards. I rushed towards and opened the driver's door. I quickly, without hesitation, took aim. Remembering my lessons growing up, locked the target down. I raised my pistol and squeezed twice in quick succession, moving the iron sights to line the visual crosshair with the top of each guard's skull. The bullets both penetrated with precision accuracy, exploding out the back of their skull. Blood and skull fragments covered the back seat and partial back window. The clothes had the insignia of the Bohemian Guard Patrol, small letters underneath, the Cult of the Grove sector, and the number 666 with the goat's head showed on their sleeves. I could see a small bag at the feet of the passenger. It was covered with blood that had dripped down from the entry wound and onto the ground. So I searched his pockets. Just a security ID and a small pendant with an ink-coiled snake and a gold-plated chain. Not much here. I jumped up into the driver's seat and began to search the passenger's corpse. I could see the firearm that was used to shoot at me. It was the normal old-school police-issued Glock. I retrieved it and placed it onto the dash for now. In the inner pocket, I found a piece of paper that had a code written on it that said Inner Owl. His right side pants pocket had a wallet. Inside was pictures of the man with other men and women dressed in party gear. The men tank tops with a pyramid and eye inside. The words around it said Alpha, Kappa, Omega. The woman looked in their early 20s and wore tight, revealing spandex. Shorts and bikinis just covered past the areolas, not leaving much to imagine at all. The guy was a frat member. This must have been his fraternity. I searched through the wallet more and found about $1,350.25 in currency and a small triangle-shaped object. It looked very strange. Snakes intertwined with each other, tails creating a small circle at each of the three triangle points. It reflected of gold. I picked up the gun off the dash and put the money in my pocket, with the note and the snake triangle I just found. I walked around the other side of the car and pulled the other corpse out from the passenger seat, throwing him onto the ground. I reached up under to bend in the chassis below the glove compartment and pulled the black Velcro bag out. I opened and looked inside. It was two sets of satin blood-coloured robes with head hoods included, the same symbol as the entrance sign was, displayed on the right breast. These looked a lot like the Ku Klux Klan robes I had seen on documentaries in the past. I closed the bag up and walked back to the Bentley. It was in bad shape. The tail lights and the back-end chassis was dented inwards bad. The trunk was folded up and tucked behind the back window's orifice. The windows seemed straight, though. I opened the car door and jumped inside. Placed the items I'd found onto the passenger seat, put the key into the ignition and started her up. She started, still gas was low and a few failure lights blinked on the dash's HUD, but she started. I pushed the pedal and moved slowly forwards. The exhaust made a loud echoing drone. In the trees of the, the large echoing drone. In the trees of the hairpin I had just come around. It got brighter. I moved back further into the bush and leaded down, crouching behind a thick-trunked tree, watching as the lights approached. I'd left the items on the seat in the Bentley. The lights focused in on the headlight. The car revealed itself, a metallic black Land Rover like the ones that wrecked the Bentley. The right side of the door opened and an IFMA officer put his feet to the ground. He reached his arm out and shined a flashlight into the windows of the car wreckage. The other got out and walked towards the back of the car. We found the authorised vehicle, sir. It could be the suspect. Signs show of an impact, possibly a car chase. Only one vehicle on the scene, though. Boss looks like Boss looks like he may have escaped or have been picked up by someone else. The radio replies with a lot of static, but through silence and the eerie shrubland, I could make out it saying, "Any sign of hostile number 5? No, none of that I can see. The guard inside the car called. The other one over. I found something. He lifted up the bag of clothes, Glock firearm the items. They both walked back to the Land Rover's bonnet and laid each item out. Just the fraternity occult ritual robes. We have something, he pressed his radio again. We found the owl key inside the suspect's car, 2 Grove members' regalia and 1 ritual chain. Looks to be of a 23rd degree initiate. Roger that, number 5. I'll run a recent security scan and find out if all club members are accountable. As the radio transmission ended, the guards started to chat amongst themselves. One started to walk off. I'm taking a piss. Watch out for eagles, Fred said. They eat small worms, and laughed. They then reached into the car window and retrieved a pack of cigarettes and lit himself a cigarette. What's this? The other officer started to yell again, real loud. Over here, quick, quick. Look, there's blood. Fuck, they'd spotted the guard's blood, the stains on the road. I had to do something before this became a manhunt for me. I reached inside and lifted out my pistol from my jacket again. I had to kill them. I had no other choice. It was being found or keep matters quiet. I really had no intentions of just advertising myself to the IFMA. I creeped towards the men laying down in the dirt and prone crawling towards, and then making sure not to reveal myself to them. I was about half a yard away when they were both back at the blood. One started to trail off. Looks like the tire tracks go through here a bit of the blood. They go this way. He moved off to the side of the road. I had pushed the guard's 4-wheel down. I locked my target tightly on one, still near the blood, and fired. His body flew back and onto the road. I didn't know if he was dead, but I didn't have time to hang around and find out. Gunshots started flying through the air around me. I was prone. One hit and slammed into the dirt about 1.5 feet from me. I lifted myself up and lifted my arm, scanning for the other officer. I ran to take cover in front of the officer's Land Rover. I scanned again for the flash. He was hiding down behind the trees. The bullets hit the side of the Rover, vibrating as they collided with powerful force into the car's structural material. I lifted my hand just high enough to return fire over the bonnet. The officer's flash moved. He's running. The shots got closer as he rushed forwards, advancing on me. I thought quickly and laid down flat and watched under the car as he ran out onto the road, still firing. I looked to the left of me. The other EPA officer's body lay dead. I knew right then, if I was to remain inconspicuous, I would have to either not use it or repair it. I remembered I had left 2 guards' bodies on the road behind. I kept thinking how bad this could have turned out if it wasn't for the loneliness of the twisting roads hidden by the trees. I walked back over to the bodies and started dragging them one by one into the nearby shrubbage. I knew the 4-wheel drive took most of the impact, being the front of the collision. No way I was using it. So I grabbed between the side mirror and the door frame and reached and then pulled the handbrake down and pulled the stick into neutral, grabbing tightly and flexing. I pulled the car using the steering wheel to guide it back into the shrubs bushland. To the 4 wheels crossed into the dirt land. The car hit a slope and rolled back away from me. I turned back to the road. The other brightness of the other car's headlights could be seen through the lamp on the floors. The other car's headlights could be seen through the I'm not sure what that says, through the lamp on the other floor's bullseye. Another accurate headshot. Turn back to the road. The headlights, I could see see through. It was limp on the floor. Headlights could be seen. It was limp on the floor. Bullseye. Another accurate headshot. The blood trail tickled away from his body. I pulled my gun up and took aim, focused on the running officer's legs. I took my shot. His kneecap exploded. He lost grip, tossed his gun into the air while taking the bullet's velocity. I moved quickly around the Rover and kept my crosshair focused. Why are you looking for me? What do you want? The officer replied. They know you talked to Crowlton. They know who you are. Now, know what? I yelled in rage. Tell me, the officer. The officer held his leg and was losing blood fast. He held his kneecap, and his kneecap had been exploded away from his bone joints. He looked up and gained a serious face. You don't know who you are messing with. They see everything. You can't escape. Who am I messing with? Tell me. I want a name. The illuminated ones. They run the grove. You have got to be stupid or really brave to come here. Judging by the look of the mess you got yourself into, I'ma say stupid. I clenched my fist and smashed the officer in the face hard. I did it again and again until his face looked like a bloody mess. Small bubbles of air in the blood covered his mouth, leaked out. I stood up and I went back to the Land Rover. The items that were all accountable for. I collected them back up, moved to the officer's body to the shrubs, and jumped into the Rover. Half a tank, nice. I started her up and reversed and placed myself facing in the side of the Bentley. I started her up and reversed and placed myself facing the side of the Bentley's wreckage. I slammed down the accelerator and rammed into the other side of the Bentley's chassis, pushing the doors and the framing, moving the car over into the side of the road. I positioned the angle so I could tip the car over as it hit the same off-road area that the 4-wheel drive had rolled down before. The metallic scrap lifted up in the air, sparks flying from the damaged muffler, and the exhaust flew up as it screeched along the road, then tipped and rolled down the slope. Knowing I'd covered my tracks, now I reserved for the knowing I covered my tracks, now I recovered the rover and turned the face to the direction I was initially going to and proceeded down the airy shrub and forestry covered road. About half a mile I could see buildings up on the right. It was a still night, but you could still see the dawn ascending in the sky's horizon. I pulled up 2 yards down from where the building's entrance could be located. A giant stone statues of an owl sat at the left and the right base of these doors. The sign "Official Members Only" hung over the metal pole with an arrow pointing to go back. I knew it wouldn't be long before IFMA or the Grove Security would be doing their next set of rounds. That's if it wasn't, or they already on the way. I drove the IFMA van to the side of the road. I drove the IFMA van to the side of the road and into the forest. I got out and I covered the vehicle with the trees and the branches. I collected the items but decided I should leave the armour. I needed a way to get inside the manor-looking building. I made my way across the road, watching back to the flanks moving up on the side of the building. I slowly strafed around, making sure to watch my surroundings. I moved around to the left side and noticed a wooden door in the ground. I'd found a cellar. I retrieved my pistol and proceeded to smash I found a wooden door. I found a cellar. I retrieved myself from the menu to smash the butt of the gun against the padlock till it gave way. I lifted the squeaky old heavily doors, grabbing the handles and swinging both sides open. Looking down, I could see the stairs of a red painted symbol that looked to be like a cobra was inscribed into the brickworks. Either side of the stairs descending entrance. Putting one foot in front of the other, I counted 33 steps to the lower floor. It looked like a sheik's palace. Red velvet curtains hanging down either side of a solid gold altar. The words "war" in capitals had been crafted into the bricks. A half-sun symbol on top with a lightning bolt. It looked a lot like the SS from the Nazis' SS-styled format. Photos of presidents and famous actors and actresses and musicians in a neat sequence alone along the wall. In the centre of a golden pentagram with a running fixed glass lit candle. It looked like these could be the Satanists I've been warned about. Folders along the side with different titles I could read: Ancient Bloodlines, Our World Command, The Blackmail and the Stage and Fake Terror Attacks. I opened up the Stage and Fake Terror Attacks. The book looked important, so important that it had been professionally printed. I opened the book, confidential for Grove members only. It had a signature signed by the Committee of 300 and was approved by the United Nations chapter. One was called The Problem, then Reaction, then Solution. It then dropped the hypothetical scenario below. To create a subduable mass, you must control their reality. If an individual had proposals for government or military agendas the mass would find unnecessary, the agent must find a way to change the mass's way of thinking. Our example would be the United States Constitution. He has many things we do not agree with. It has to go, finally, and the only way to make it become powerless is to create a scenario where it becomes obsolete. We of the New World Command have done this for decades. Vietnam, World War I and World War II, and the future war that will unite us all into a global dictatorship government run by the inner circle are all necessary. First, you must have your agenda. Be it take the liberties away, destroy the Constitution, secretly record everyone's biometric data for use in a great supercomputer. Second, you must emphasize the problem. If you want more of a surveillance or to drill or military-run militia martial law take over without the masses getting word of the plan, you must then sell it to the masses as a real problem. The media helps us do this with a few men dressed in black masks in a studio with a green screen performing a fake beheading or few strategically placed bombs can help us, even the most manipulated towards being the planned agenda. Then wait for the masses to feel the fear. Sell it to them that they are not safe. Then after the wanted reaction has been created by manipulating the masses, it's time to sell the original change of laws and lifestyle security. The problem, the reaction, I stopped reading. I could hear talking coming from the cellar's entrance. The door's been broken. Look, someone smashed the padlock. I'll call for security. No, that's not. It's probably the kids. We can kidnap them and use them for sacrifice in the ritual. The masters will reward us. Footsteps creeped down towards me, squeaking as each step moved onto the descending stairs. Descending stairs. I looked for a place to hide. I couldn't see anywhere. I pushed up against the wall behind them as they moved from the stairs into the room. Moving into a nice shadow, I crouched and I watched the men. They were wearing the same regalia as the robes I'd found in the bag. One had his hood on and the other barefaced with a tattoo of the same markers on the wall. The left side of his skull just below the hairline. They walked into the center of the room. Okay, kids, we know you're here. Come out and we won't press charges. The voices got more and more impatient and louder. I counted three. Now another man had just come down the stairs. What are you looking for? What are you two doing? Nothing, Blake. We seen the door busted, figured kids have broken in. Well, what are you waiting for? Start searching. I'll take the left, admin, and you take the right, Curtis. You stand guard at the door. They can't be far, and there's only one way out of here. Before I knew it, they had started to come towards my hiding place, my shadow. I drew my gun up and I lifted it out from the shadow. The men all looked towards me. Fuck, it's not kids. He's got a gun. Loud, thunderous footsteps echoed as they scrabbled up the stairs. Stairs fast as hell. Slam. Hey, get something to lock this. Use this. I could hear the men sliding something to wedge the shutter doors of the cellar shut. It was dark and I couldn't see much. I sat there in the darkness. I could see the sun's rays piercing through the cracks around the cellar's entrance door. I moved around. I really couldn't see much. I reached down and pulled out my pistol and angled it against the sun ray to cast a reflection of light to the nearby wall that contained the photos on. Click! I moved a switch on the wall. After examining it first, the few photo frames, the pentagram candles become aflamed. The 5 points lit up a trail, and then the fire engulfed the gold outline. The room was flickering orange and yellow, and the glass-fueled flames danced around in front of my gaze. The altar creaked and then slowly moving shelf raised up from the interior, sheathing a gold sacrificial dagger with a cobra inscribed insignia fixed into the handle's craftsmanship. Dare I take it? No, I wasn't going to. It had a very nerving and unsettling presence about it, like it had been used to devour many, many souls in its life. The flames of the pentagram reflected in the dagger's vibrant finish. The few letters of war are lit and oozed fire out from it. Strange, the entire cellar looked to be used for a cult, so much that the elite had went through such trouble to fit gas lines through to the pentagram war letters and outline the pentagram. I was pretty sure the lifting shelf was operated using the gases compression somewhere in the buildings. Mapping, the door seemed quiet. The noise of the men talking had vanished. I looked at the cracks around the frame. Could I use this dagger? I could see a long object crossing the center crack that was the descending vertical. That must be what they used to barricade the door with. Watching for a few hours, I must have passed. The voices returned here. Put it through here. The group on the other side of the door then started to push small hose-like through the sunlight crack. It's in. Cover the rest of the door with those towels. Hold this motherfucker. Thinks he's smart with that gun. Let's see how he does against grade A pharmaceutical knockout gas. Ha ha ha. The sun rays dispersed from around the door and my head started to feel wheezy. My vision felt like it was slowing down and my head got heavy. I had to lay down. I watched the dancing pentagram candles flicker as my eyelids started to close and the pistol fell from my hand to the floor. My knees gave way and I fell to them. I managed to gain the strength to fight the gas before falling unconscious. Before I went black, all I can recollect is the sun rays reappearing around the door and loud noises as they removed the items that I had at the door barricaded. The doors opened. The sun shined brightly into my face. A group of robed men rushed down the stairs. Then everything went completely black as my body collapsed to the floor and my eyes shut. My mercy was now in the hands of these strange Grove members. My eyes reopened. I looked around at my surroundings. Men gathered in hundreds stood in front of me. They all wore the same regalia. My hands had been binded behind my back. To the left and to the right of me, 2 other middle-aged men attached to a wooden crucifix. Sorry, inverted crucifix. It's hard to remember all the events from the time everything rushed by so fast. The robed audience chanted loud with some incoherent nonsense that had no meaning in it to me. Oh, great one, great fly, great watcher. We fly due east when the signs is right. Fly due west when the world is ripe. In our times of cremation is the key. We must through the wishes and the winter's nights adjure, but through his great wisdom the children of the ancient the cares are dissolved. Midsummer sets us free. A bright red light took over my colours. As the haze got brighter, I turned my head to the right and had seen a giant stone statue of an owl. Its eyes split blood red. A voice echoed from the oversized stone statue. It was like being broadcasted through by a microphone. Fools, fools, fools. You think that you can burn me? The men chanted louder. Oh yes, mighty spirit, we can and we shall. A man advanced from the crowd. His robes were different, black satin with a golden embroidery and the cobra insignia. He held a fire-in torch in his left hand, and the right was a dagger from the altar I had seen earlier. He walked to the man to the left and he said, "Hey buddy, my name's Eric. Eric Stradman, my wife, his mumbling to me ceased, and the black-robed man opened the back hilt of the dagger and began to dose the man with what smelled as petrol. Ah, the man screamed as the fire engulfed his body. The smell was rancid. It made my stomach tie in knots. My anxiety level was going through the roof. You have to be cleansed by the master. Serve him well. I see you when cleansed by the master. Serve him well when you see him. The owl statue started again. Fool, you think one is enough? Fool, you should have your ceremony. I shall partake, but you shall offer more. The crowd of the robed men then chanted louder, "Hear, hear, hear," cheering and praising the death of the burning, screaming man beside me. His body burnt to a crisp ashes, and from his corpse drifted in the air. The black-robed Grove member walked from the left past me, then to the right, turned around to the audience and said, "One shall be of fire, the next shall be of blood." Kaboom! A big fiery explosion in the distance lifted into the sky. Grove, someone has just detonated some form of explosion in the distance. The group stopped the ceremony and began to turn and run towards the Grove Manor. Apart from the black satin-covered man, he stood by the side of me, yelling and chanting still. in the blood of our sacrifice is worthy in the direction we push. Then he lifted up the dagger and removed it from the sheath. He lifted up high above his head and started to swing. The wisp of a noise vibrated past my ears, and the black-robed man stopped in his tracks, dropping the sacrificial dagger to the ground. His chest started to bleed through the robe. Another 2 quick wisps past my ear. The man's chest jolted back and another hole oozed blood. Blood dripping down from another wound in his head. His body collapsed down in front of me. I looked to the side where the wisps were coming from. The man on the crucifix next to me was gargling blood. The robed man had managed to slice a open clear wound run down. Had managed to slice a clear open wound. Blood run down his body, dripping down to the floor. Marcus! 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 I could see a figure appear from behind the man's dripping hanging body. About a 5'2" woman emerged, perfect shape, childbearing hips with an hourglass figure, big perfect shaped breasts. Her hair was long and black. Silkness glistened as she moved in closer. She was of ethnic origin. I could see she looked Mexican or perhaps Latino. She moved right in and to the man's blood-dripping body that was still tied with his hands around the center beam of the crucifix. No, Marcus, I'm so sorry. She had water building in her eyes. She rushed towards me. I'll save you. I failed to save Marcus. I'll save you. I felt my hands being freed. My name's Maria. Come quickly. We must go. As my hands became released, my legs gave and I fell to the ground. I looked up at the stone statue's eyes glowed eerily with the blood-red haze. Maria grabbed me by the arm, lifting me up. We moved closer to the statue to take cover from the incoming IFMA entourage. We watched as the headlights pushed towards us, advancing from the darkness's horizon. Maria leaned back and tapped me. Be my spotter. What do you mean? Locate targets for me. Tell me with what o'clock and how close. Okay, I've got it. The trees violently swayed as the Black Horse swamped into the night skies. I focused 2 and 4 at 2 o'clock, 50 metres. A quick succession of wisps and the IFMA agents lay dead. 1 at 3, I yelled, 20 metres, running as a K9. She moved, refocused and squeezed down her trigger again. Wisp. The running officer's body impacted backwards and dropped to the floor. Blood trickled from his neck between his face and his shield. The bulletproof vest. The K9, which was on closer inspection, was a German Shepherd, had started to lick the wound and then eat into the man's throat. More helicopters moved in the numbers seen where in the 40s. I knew that this was it. It was going to end here. Maria had started to move more along the backside of the giant stone owl. I started to move back, sliding my hand along the rocky surface. As I slid backwards, following Maria's, my hand crossed a strange indent in the side of the statue. The officers could be seen walking in formation, a form of semicircle around me and Maria. I followed the strange indent with my hand. It was a large square, and to the side of it was the engraving of the triangle. The triangle! I could use the golden triangle I'd found earlier, which would fit with most precision compression. I reached for it and slid it into the indent. A click and a thunderous noise erupted from the stone owl. The side of the owl slid away and revealed a ladder descending downwards to what looked to be really deep. Maria, look. Oh, Maria, look. That's great. That's exactly what we need to go. Go, go, go. Maria pushed me towards the ladder. I grabbed the railing and began to move as quick as I could down the ladder. I looked up and I could see Maria's bum. It was nice. Wow, she was fit, that's for sure. The lights from the oncoming IFMA invasion danced around. We climbed down deep. Maria was firing upwards, taking pot shots, making sure that no one would try to follow. The rumbling started again, and the owl side slid back up into its position. Arriving at the bottom tunnels, decorated in such strange beams, littered the wall. There the Chitahori, Maria said out loud. Which way? Oh, hold up, sorry. Rumbling again, the owl slid back down. Arriving at the bottom, the tunnels are decorated in strange beings, littered the wall. They're the Chitahori, Maria said out loud. Which way? The tunnels descend to the right and to the left. One, you notice, had a small door at the end. The other had faded into the darkness, looking away long into the distance. The statue rumbled again. I looked up to see what was going on. The IFMA agents had started to enter and climb down the ladder. Maria looked up and raised a weapon. Wisp, a silencer smoked at the end. I watched as the first officer started falling. Run! Maria grabbed my arm again and pulled. Go this way, go this way. I have an idea. We both run into the dark descending passage. I pushed Maria up against the wall. It must have been all those commando movies I watched, but as a kid, I felt an animal rage instinct pushed through my subconscious and engulfed my mind. I grabbed the gun off Maria and hit the tunnel's ground, prone to the shadows covered us well. I locked aim towards the entrance that we had just come through. I had to hit the deer in the neck, but this time it was the heart or the head shot that I wanted. I could see the fallen agent crippled and bleeding on the ground where it fell from the ladder. The lights flashed and began to engulf the darkness as they illuminate the darkness, it should be, I guess. The flashlights began to illuminate the darkness as they appeared from the ladder. I kept steady. They didn't know we were here hiding, so I watched. Maria had fed herself into a narrow rock formation in the side of the wall. It looked like maybe a pillar once stood there, but now it was Maria's safe haven. I watched as the light began to turn towards us. The agent stood in a group over the shot and fallen comrade. The one to the right had lifted his torch up towards us. The one to the left had begun to do the same. I watched as the man to the right torch lifted and illuminated the other's heads. Wisp. I took one shot and missed. Fuck. I fired again in quick succession. The man to the right took the bullet straight through his throat and was convulsing on the ground. The loud assault rifle fire echoed through the passage as the IFMA agents that remained opened up. Come out now. We won't hurt you. We won't hurt you, I could hear one yelling in the background. Between the discharges and my brain rushed with thoughts. Are you kidding me? This is how life is. This is how now my intended destiny of a few days before these attacks. The world was so everyday ritualistic. Now it seems upside down, like I'm inside of a George Orwellian nightmare novel. I focused back to the IFMA agents advancing. I could see in Maria's face that she was becoming anxious. I took aim, watching the dancing torchlights in front of me. Bullets echoed as the agents kept firing small bursts from their rifles. I squeezed right through the leg and into the other. I squeezed again, another kill. The agents were down. One trickled blood from the right of his face. The other two lay wounded on the ground. Let's go. Let's go. I moved up to the IFMA agents. Help us, please, they begged. The rifles that they had I could see about a metre away from them. Maria had made her sexy self present to the IFMA agents also. They looked at her. You, I should have known it was you. Bang, bang. Maria had taken the small pistol from her boot and shot both the agents in the middle of the head. What the fuck? Shh. Just help me search them. What the fuck is going on? I kept repeating in my head. We turned to the blood-dripping bodies and to their sides and started to search the pockets. Some Mentos and a handkerchief with some number on it. And wow, okay, this was a good collection of assorted keys on a circular metal ring. Maria had started to search the other corpse. I looked and I winked. Looks like we got something, extending my eyebrows suggestively. Very good, very good. We may just get out of here. She lifted up and said, okay, mine's clear. Let's take the rifles and see how many clips that we can scavenge. I got a feeling that we were going to need it to get out of this goddamn place. Okay, good idea. We scattered around searching the bodies and the hallway. 4 clips, not bad. Plus the ammo remaining in the agent's rifles, we had enough. Okay, let's do this. The door here at the end is the key. The keys. The door here at the end is the key. Keys, hold up, let's go. We advanced on the slightly illuminated door at the end of the tunnel, aiming at the door. Okay, Maria, cover me. I moved towards the door, getting closer. I noticed a keyhole right in the center of the door. Strange, I inserted the key one by one. The keys had numbers engraved on them. 13, 2, 5, 6, 77, 3, and 33. I inserted them all until I got to number 33. And then I inserted it. It clicked, but nothing happens. The bricks to the side began to vibrate and move back, revealing a metal biometric hand reader. The computer then spoke in an electronic voice. Please place your hand into the scanner before proceeding past this point. Okay, I turned around and Maria was bent over, pulling one of the agent's bodies up towards the door. I went over and grabbed the other arm of the body and pulled, trailing the corpse to the hand scanner. Okay, here goes nothing. We removed the black glove and placed the agent's palm flat down onto the biometric faceplate. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Access has been granted to the doors. The doors rumbled again and began to retract up into the ceiling, into the roof. I scanned around with my eyes through the open door. Stop it! I could see Phil. Before I could say anything, an echoing voice harshly said, Enter, Mr. Crowlton. And how could I forget you, young lady Maria? Enter now, before I lose my patience. Strange, I could swear I had heard that voice before, somewhere, but I just couldn't put a face to the voice. Maria and I slowly advanced forwards, keeping a very careful eye on our surroundings. In the hallways in front was military-looking solid plating sealed. The walls were highly complicated with retina scanner and biometric reading devices aligned down the corridor. The lights above each door remained red, apart from the far one to the left. In the middle had a green light flickering. The voice had stopped. We both advanced on the green illuminated door. The main door we needed the hand scanner used on to open it shut abruptly. Oh shit, this can't be good. The lights on the doors in the corridor changed from red to green simultaneously. The doors retracted one by one, sliding into the roof. I couldn't believe and still can't believe what I saw with my own eyes next. I still have trouble believing what was really happening. Okay, so there's my the end chapter to the book itself, and that's where I was going to put a to be continued and start another chapter of the books itself as a full trilogy, or maybe going into 4 or 5 of them. It depended, but that was the idea of it. So it gives it a twist to the end, and then the next book was to start off where it was getting to the point where the president was going to come forwards and be an actual shapeshifter inside of this reality and explain a lot more of the secrets that were going on. And then obviously young Mr. Crowlton and Maria were miraculously going to escape again somehow, like all of these spy movies, etc., stuff like that go. And they were going to find out more secrets, etc. And the problem is I stopped it there because everything else happened after there. So I hope you enjoyed it, and in the future I will put it out as a book. I'll put it out as an ebook. Hopefully it goes for like $7, something like that. It's only a story, you know what I mean? There's not much to it. So, but I hope you enjoyed it, and does something different for you to get hold of during this time of need and to the time of confusion that's going on. But in reality, right now, we all just have to remember what I said at the beginning of this, and to remember to balance your spiritual body. Remember to have all of your chakras aligned, and remember to keep in perpetual motion to the universe, running through your kundalini to the source. You know what I mean? So once you open up and you connect to the higher self of what you really are, because we are all higher souls inside of us, just people cannot remember and connect back to spirit. And you have the natural ability to prevent anything like this, natural from your spirit. Your spirit does not allow anything that it manifests inside of a vibrational construct to actually harm you unless you give it permission to allow that to happen inside of your experience of the physical reality construct and this vibrational game. So peace, love, and respect all, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the book. I know it went for a while. It should have really been 2 chapters, but it was quite a long read itself. So I hope you're all well out there, and remember to always have faith in spirit, and your spirit will always guide you through anything, because spirit is the creator. We from the outside as a collective spirit manifest physical reality, and there's nothing